call this meeting of Georgetown County Council, regular meeting on September the 22nd to order. How's that? Better? Okay, first item on the agenda is the invocation. If Mr. Charlton would do us the honors, please, sir.
Those of you who can stand, please stand for the invocation and the pledge to the flag. Heavenly Father, we come to you this night. First of all, Father God, we want to give you thanks. We want to thank you for the many blessings that you've blessed upon each one of us. We thank you for the beauty and the bounty of this great land that we live upon, and ask you to keep your hand of mercy and grace upon it. And now as this council prepares itself for the business in hand this night, we also ask for your wisdom and your guidance, Lord, that we would be good stewards of these things that are entrusted in our care. For these and all things, we all say, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Next is the approval of the agenda, noting that we were wanting to move Report 15A to the beginning. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve that with the aforesaid mention.
Motion by Mr. Charlton. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Newton. All in favor? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next, we have public comment. We set aside 30 minutes for public comment each council meeting. Teresa, I imagine we have people who have signed up. Okay. All right. We'll do. We have a presenter. I can get to my notes.
Very last page. Second to last.
Ms. Louise Carson, have a presentation.
Hi, can you all hear me? Hi, thanks for having me this evening. My name is Louise Carson, and I have the honor of being the Executive Director for the Children's Recovery Center in Georgetown and Myrtle Beach. The Children's Recovery Center is your child advocacy center for Horry and Georgetown counties. A child advocacy center is a one-stop shop for child abuse victims and their caretakers. You can see up here on the slide, we have two facilities, one in Myrtle Beach and one in Georgetown. These are both houses, and that's the model for the Child Advocacy Center because it's more child-friendly than having a child have to go to a police station, a doctor's office, possible social service offices. So we provide medical services, mental health services, education and advocacy and therapeutic services under one roof. And if we could go to the next slide. We are an accredited child advocacy center through the National Children's Alliance. The National Children's Alliance is a nationwide network of child advocacy centers based out of Washington, D.C. We have to work under certain standards and protocols to be a member of the National Children's Alliance, and we are reaccredited every 5 years. We've been serving Georgetown and Horry County since 1996. In 1996, there was no child advocacy center here, and Dr. Carol Rotter was an ER physician, and she would be looking for an advocacy center to send a child she had seen in the ER, and there was no place to send them close. So she gathered a task force and started the Children's Recovery Center. We're a nonprofit organization, and we're governed by a board of directors. And next slide, please. We have, Dr. Rotter provides forensic medical exams for all the children who come to our center. We also have a staff of forensic interviewers. I have 4 forensic interviewers. So instead of the police interviewing the kids and them having to tell these stories over and over again, they tell it one time, and that's at our center. These stories, most of the cases we see are for sexual abuse children. Last year in Georgetown, we saw 98 children. In Myrtle Beach, we saw 277. Last year in Georgetown, 47 children were treated for STIs, and the average age of the child we see for sexual assault is 9 years old. So when they come to our center, we talk to them about what has happened to them and what is going to happen, you know, the day they're there. Everybody gets a head-to-toe physical exam with Dr. Carroll and a forensic interview. Most of the children who come to us have been through horrific traumatic events, and they need therapy. Therapy is also provided at the Children's Recovery Center. We also refer them for other services as needed. A lot of these kids are victims of abuse, but there's, you know, a million other problems in their home, and so they haven't been to the doctor, they haven't been to the dentist. A lot of them are in foster care, they don't have any clothes. So we provide follow-up services as needed. Next slide, please. We always strive for the best outcome for each child we see. We treat each child individually, and everybody at the Children's Recovery Center, along with our police department, the DSS workers, someone maybe from that child's school, we form a team around that child, and that's how our model works. And we strive for good community partnerships. I couldn't do my job at the CRC without help from the police. The police couldn't do their job without help from us. DSS, we're all intertwined. Everybody has a different part in what's going on with these kids. We also offer a high-quality education program, prevention program. What we don't want to see is we never want to see a child back at our center twice, and I'm sorry to tell you that that does happen. And we want to make these children, we want to give them the tools they need to become strong adult survivors. Next slide, please. Like I said, we're a 501c3 organization. We fundraise. This year, we've had 4 fundraising events that had been canceled. Last year at this time, I had made $85,000 in fundraising. To date, this year, I've made 43. We have a trivia night at St. Michael's Church in Murrells Inlet, and of course we participate in Palmetto Giving Day here in Georgetown County, and we recently just had a raffle, and we sold raffle tickets, and the CRC got $5,000 and the winner got $5,000. Next slide, please. I don't know if you're aware of it, but 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. Nearly 70% of all the sexual assault cases in the United States that are reported against children. More than 90% of the children who are sexually abused know their abusers, so children don't want to tell a lot of times. So a lot of times it's a long time before somebody tells their story. When I first came to the Children's Recovery Center, I of course knew what they did, but nothing could have prepared me to hear these horrific stories out of the mouths of babes. I also too was just shocked at, you know, our medical practices. Most pediatricians' offices test for strep throat, and we test for HIV and chlamydia. So. The good news is that the kids who do come and go through our program and go through our therapy program do have a chance, and we like to give them that chance. So I want to thank you for having me here tonight, and if anyone has any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions from council? Well, thank you very much for coming here tonight.
Okay, thanks so much for having me.
Okay, now for public comment.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we do have 15 speakers signed up tonight, so each will have up to 2 minutes. And the first is Cynthia Person.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Person. I'm with Keep It Green, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the Gilmore zoning change request. After several years of closely watching the zoning change process, Keep It Green has learned that somewhere along the line, Georgetown County stopped paying close attention to following the law and following proper procedure in zoning matters. It seems that instead of evaluating whether a proposed plan meets the requirements of our existing zoning, we began modifying our zoning to accommodate proposed plans. And as a result, some of us, especially those in the Waccamaw Neck, are living with some very serious problems. So, we have to get back to following the law, and the law is very clear and very straightforward. Under the law, a zoning ordinance cannot be changed without a showing of public necessity, and the burden is on the applicant to prove that public necessity, not the opposite. The burden is not on the public to prove there is not a public necessity, and if the applicant does not establish a public need for the change, then the request must be denied. We don't have to get deep into the weeds about the details of the plan or the amended plan to answer that threshold question of whether there is a public need in the first place. And if that's not clear enough, this particular request also violates the clear mandate of our county land use plan. So now we have no public necessity and a violation of our own plan. And over and above that, we have to consider landowner rights. And what are the landowner rights in the context of a zoning request, zoning change request? Well, first, the property owner has the right to use his property in accordance with the way it's zoned. So in this case, Mr. Gilmore would have the perfect right to use his property as 1/2 acre, single-family residential. Nobody's trying to stop that. Nobody's trying to downzone him. On the other hand, the neighboring property owners, and there are many, also have rights. They have the right to rely on existing zoning on land around them to expect that it will not be changed to their detriment. And that's why they have substantive appeal rights. So the bottom line is, the way to protect the rights of all the landowners is to keep the zoning the same in the absence of public necessity. And to close, I just want to say, I've heard some talk about possibly remanding this back to the Planning Commission for further review. And I would just say that it doesn't take another review by the Planning Commission to make a decision about whether there's public necessity. It's your decision. The time is now. The applicant has moved forward. It's on your agenda. So we would say take care of business and vote to deny this request. Thank you.
Mary Beth Klein.
Chairman Thomas and County Council members, my name is Mary Beth Klein. I live in Pawleys Island and I represent Keep It Green. As my colleague Cindy so eloquently outlined, I too urge this council to not focus on the details of this plan, but instead to focus on the law. The details of this plan only distract us from the true issue. It doesn't matter whether this plan contains 14 townhouses or 10 duplexes. The fact of the matter is that it is zoned for a maximum of 6, and probably fewer, single-family homes. And even one more unit in the lower neck beyond the current plan is both against the public good and in violation of our own land use plan. Over and above that single, salient, and powerful legal point, please know that hundreds of neighbors and community members have sent letters of opposition to you, their council members, and the planning department, and dozens showed up at the planning commission meeting, and many are here tonight to again express their vehement disapproval of this request. In fact, not a single community member has spoken or gone on record in favor of this request, while hundreds are on record to oppose it, because it adversely affects the public good for three main reasons. One, it would increase population density on a strip of land that has already far exceeded the capacity of its infrastructure and is an extreme safety hazard on many levels. Emergency evacuations, stormwater, flooding, traffic. We live with this risk every day on the lower neck. Two, it would increase traffic at an already congested and unsafe intersection, an intersection that serves 3 big schools, 2 large churches. It puts children at more risk. And 3, it would increase flooding at an intersection that is already one of the worst flooding areas in the lower neck. This would only add to it. So in closing, this zoning request is not a public necessity and therefore should be denied on that fact alone. But if that isn't enough, I've summarized for you what hundreds of citizens have gone on record to document how this zoning request is adverse to the public good and should be denied without question. And representatives from the neighborhood are here to speak to how it would be detrimental to them and how it infringes on their rights as property owners. So I ask you, each of you is an elected official and a public servant. You're responsible to uphold the law and meet the express needs of the constituents that you represent. Are you going to follow the law and act in accordance with what the citizens have asked of you in denying the request? Are you going to accommodate the request of one individual whose request is against the public good? I, for one, believe in the democratic process and have faith in you as public servants to do the right thing and deny this request. Thank you.
Marla Jean Hamby.
I'm Marla Jean Hamby, and I live in Pawleys Island. I'd like to thank the council for giving me this opportunity to bring forth some concerns that I have. The Georgetown County Land Use Plan, adopted in 2015, I assumed was the current guidance given by council when they voted to approve it. This document, in my opinion, has been ignored for years when it comes to planning approvals on the Waccamaw Neck. I believe that I have referenced page 23 of that document before, and I may have even provided you with a copy. I'm going to read part of it for the folks here in the auditorium who may not even know what I'm talking about, and afterwards I'm going to leave you another copy. I really believe this was placed in the land use plan in 2008, and it says, the overriding issue in the Pawleys-Litchfield area is population density. The general concept of allowing higher density to prevent sprawl is no longer applicable in this area. The key now is to limit the number of residential units that are added so that the impacts of additional development, i.e. increased traffic congestion, increased stormwater runoff, greater pressures on our overall infrastructure are minimized as much as possible. In addition, some potential changes in commercial uses could have significant adverse impacts on adjoining properties, and others could seriously impair the efficiency of US Highway 17. The residents of the Waccamaw Neck deserve to have our wishes respected and the clear language of the land use plan followed, and not to change existing zoning to any form of higher density. I'm wondering, does the county just go through the motions of holding public hearings, printing up and voting on a document that is supposed to be respected and followed for the next 10 years? Will the Planning and Zoning Department and Commission treat it with respect and follow its mandates? It is quite evident that the tax-paying public on the Waccamaw Neck expects our county to recognize and respect our strong objections to changing any single-family zoning to anything that even allows one more dwelling than presently permitted. No matter how pretty the picture is drawn, the same will hold true with any recreational or green space that developers may want to build on in the future. There is land out there that is already zoned for multifamily. We don't need to take land that is zoned for single family and make changes to accommodate a developer. Please leave the amount of land left on the Waccamaw Neck for single family homes alone. If I may, I'm going to give Ms. Floyd the copies of page 23 for y'all to look at again.
John Evans.
Hi, my name is John Evans, and I currently live at Woodville Circle, which is directly across from the proposed development. I've lived there for 13 years, and just in the last three and a half, I've had increased flooding with now even minor rains, but definitely with the major storms. Now, I've lived there for 13 years, and we've had plenty of storms come through, but now I'm seeing up to 3 feet of water 60 feet, 70 feet long in the back of my yard. Threatening my house with Matthew was the most dangerous. And I asked myself, what has changed? You know, is it global warming? Maybe. But the biggest thing, I've gone around and driven around the neighborhood, now I see that it's developments like Hammock Cove, which is up on Pettigrew, which I found out when they cleared all that land, it drains towards me. And if you try driving across Martin Luther King in a heavy storm, you'll see the river that comes across it now, which eventually ends up, I'm at the end of the line where all this water goes. So I have a vested interest in this not changing from single family to multifamily. And again, they can talk about the plans and the designs, but it's a simple math here. Which is going to cause less impermeable land, single family or multifamily? You know, the rest is sugar-coated. Single family will cause less impermeable land. I can't stop that, but I can prevent more especially right next to me when I've already had increased flooding. It will not minimize the problem. And to the points that everybody else spoke to tonight, I'd like to just turn around and say, how many people in here oppose this? How many came here to oppose? Okay? How many people came to say yay to this? 2. And I'm guessing they have some money involved in this. And as our elected officials to represent we the people, I hate to put you guys on the spot here, but democracy is being put on the test here today. In today's climate, we're all kind of upset with our government. And we're here today to show you the will of the people who took their time to come here today to risk infection, are here to say, please vote no. As our representative, Mr. Goggins especially, you're my representative, I'm asking you to vote no on this. And if not, I will find out why in the rest of this room, because there's more projects coming. If we can allow this development to go, one of the most busiest intersections in the community, to become multifamily, do you think that's going to stop it anywhere else that's not as busy? Which again will increase more stormwater runoff, more density, and more traffic violation, or traffic, sorry, losing my mind here. Congestion, thank you. Again, I ask you, please vote no.
Robert Nichols.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. My name is Bob Nichols, and I live in Woodville Circle. I have 2 houses in Woodville Circle. I'm here to address the application for a zoning change on the property on the corner of Waverly and Kings River Road. When I bought my property, it was with the understanding that the surrounding property around me would be zoned half-acre lots, and I knew my investment would be safe. It's also my understanding that the builder could still build houses on this property per the current zoning, and there is no apparent hardship for him to meet those requirements. My other concern is the traffic at the intersection and the stormwater flooding. We've heard, you all have pictures, I'm sure, up there now of the flooding we've had. We've heard there's going to be a retention pond. Well, how big is that going to be? Will it handle the water if it overflows? Will there be a mechanism to release the water if it gets too high without affecting our neighborhood? The intersection already overflows during heavy rains, as shown by the rain just a few weeks ago on the 9th. This further increases the possibility of an accident at this intersection. In those pictures, you'll see that there's cars, when they go around through that water, they come into the oncoming lane to avoid the water at that intersection. In addition, it causes flooding in the yards and the streets across the street and in our neighborhood, Woodville Acres. In 2 instances within the last few weeks, the water was within 30 feet of our neighbor's yard, went in 30 feet into their yards. There is not enough drainage in the intersection to handle heavy rains. There is flooding now. How will it be builder protect us from any further runoff from cutting down hundreds of trees, adding roofs, roads that will only add to the runoff? Will the builder be required to correct existing water problems first, or will the taxpayers be required to foot the bill if you approve the zoning change to correct the water problems when the builder moves on? As far as the traffic is concerned, we are told there is no need to submit a traffic study because of projected use of cars. You've already acknowledged that this is a dangerous intersection and that it is being studied for possible traffic circle, which is probably a bad idea that would require the cutting down of a huge historic protected oak tree. During the school year, the traffic is so bad it's difficult for us to get out of our development. In addition to the road being added across the street for this development and the 2 churches that use this road during service. When there's an accident on 17, there's a constant flow of traffic at this intersection trying to get around it. We have small children in this development, and when people miss their turn, they use Woodville Circle to turn around in, specifically the first driveway on the corner where there is a small child. I don't believe there is any legal reason to grant this variance. There's no hardship. It is not in the public's best interest, and there is no public necessity. It violates our rights on the current Georgetown County Land Use Plan, which restricts the number of new resident units allowed in Pawleys Island, Litchfield area. All 21 families in Woodville Acres respectfully request that you do not approve this application for a variance. Mr. Goggins, as our representative, we ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Jessica Cosgrove.
I'm going to read that. Can I do it here? Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do I have to? Ah, okay. My name is Jessica Cosgrove, and I live at 6 Woodville Circle. My home is located at the corner of Martin Luther King and Waverly, right on the corner there. This proposed development is directly across the street from my home and will absolutely negatively affect my daily life. The traffic on Waverly is already a problem. By adding 10 double units, this will only get worse. I have a 3-year-old, and we already can't let her play out in front because of the cars speeding down Waverly. Our fears will only be heightened with increased traffic. Another huge negative impact will be the increased flooding that will occur. As I walked the loop yesterday with my 3 grandchildren, Woodville Circle Loop, there was still standing water in many of the yards from the storm that was last week. We're not draining now. It is my understanding that in order to change zoning, there must be clear evidence that it would be good for our community. I am here to state that this building request would not be good for our community, and it in fact would hurt us. I already walk fearfully down the bike path with her on the inside because there is so much traffic. It's not better. Mr. Goggins, as my representative, I'm asking for the safety of my granddaughter and all the other kids in the neighborhood to please vote to deny this request to change zoning. Thank you.
Jill Schoen.
Try to be persuasive and eloquent in my dissent, and try to be a role model for my daughter by showing that you can stand up for your beliefs, and one voice can make a difference. Hello, my name is Jill Schoen, and I'm a Georgetown County School District teacher. I'm here with my husband, Ben Schoen, who's also a teacher in Georgetown County. I've been a resident of Georgetown County for 30 years, and the last 17, I have lived at Woodville Circle, the neighborhood that is directly across from the property in question. We're raising our two children in the Woodville neighborhood. It's nice, it's quiet, it's safe, and we know all of our neighbors. I have 3 concerns to discuss how I feel today, and I feel that they're valid. 1, with each new development in our community, for example, Pettigrew, behind the elementary school and beside the elementary school, we have noticed marked increase in traffic on Waverly and Kings River Road with 2 schools, 1 on each road, and 2 churches that have very large congregations. There is a constant flow of traffic, making it difficult at times to access Waverly from Woodville Circle. Number 2, the population in our community continues to escalate. The rezoning of this property will add to the increase in population and will set a precedence for the upcoming pieces of property in our area that will be up for being rezoned. We need to be aware of the effect that this rezoning is going to have on our environment and our community. There is no proof of public necessity to rezone this property. Number 3, with the removal of trees and the addition of impermeable surfaces from roads, from driveways, and from dwellings, there is concern of storm water drainage. Driving through my neighborhood today, there remains standing water in yards and drainage ditches from last Friday's storm. Water runs in torrents across Martin Luther King Road after thunderstorms. I'm not talking hurricanes and tropical storms, just a regular old thunderstorm. And they drain into our backyards. Our neighbor, Dr. John Evans, has had water reaching to his house, and that's after a thunderstorm. And then Matthew, a couple years ago, was the worst. In addition, our neighbor, Dr. Mary Ann Hayden, has considerable amounts of water in her front yard after every storm. Water from this property at the corner of Waverly and Kings River Road will run into our lower-lying neighborhood. Mr. Goggins, as a member of our Waccamaw community and as a representative for our community, we are asking that you vote on behalf of our community against the rezoning of this property. Thank you.
Tommy Gordon. Tommy Gordon. John Witherspoon.
Yes, good evening. My name is John Witherspoon, and I'm a Pawleys Island resident. I'm here tonight to request that you deny this change. Since I was here last time, nothing really has changed. We still have the flooding. We still have that four-way stop. And again, I'll call it the Bermuda Quadrangle. We have 3 churches, not to disparage this young lady over here. There is a church called the Abbey. It's in Litchfield Plantation, where my daughter lives, and my son-in-law. Also in there, they're building multi-units. I guess they're going to be, I don't know, condos or townhouses. And it runs right along, I guess, Martin Luther King there. It's going to be 41 units. 41 units means 41 families, 41 cars. If a husband and wife each have a car, you add it up. The property in question across the street is Chapel Creek, I believe, is the name of it. Again, if you drive past there, all the air conditioners are up in the air due to flooding. Nothing's changed. With the increased flooding, you could probably look at higher insurance premiums on your house for flooding. Probably higher insurance premiums to drive your car. It's the same old story. Once the cowboy gets his nose under the tent, he's in the tent. And I will say, as I've gone through my life, there's always been standards met. Your church, the service, school, home, wherever. Everybody had a set of standards, work. You live by them. And as I've gone, like I said, through my life, I see standards lowered more and more and more, no matter where I go. And they keep getting lower and lower and lower, until finally you hit bottom. And then one day, you look out your window, and you see a Walmart, or you'll see a car dealership, or maybe a Ferris wheel. This place where I live is beautiful. Please don't destroy it. Thank you.
Art Murphy.
Good evening. My name's Art Murphy. I'm a retired architect. Spent 30 years on planning and zoning committees in the town of Reston, Virginia, one of the more famous planned communities. I'm here to speak not for or against this project, but I think what is being lost sight in this is the just absolute objection to the fact that there's an increase in number. It went from 14 to 11 to 10, which is a reduction of a third, but it's also gone from 6 single-family to 10 duplexes, which is an increase by half plus. But I think that you need to be concerned that you get what you've asked for, which is 3 acres of half-acre lots, and if the developer wants to do that, the best way to do that is to nuke the site. He's going to strip every tree off it because it's going to give him the flexibility to put in the 6 units, which he's allowed. I don't think you're going to be happy with that. I think if you ride up and down Kings River Road, other than the trees that are left on the perimeter of the road, you see how those homes are being developed, and I think that's what you'll end up with here. You're also going to end up with 6 driveways as opposed to 1 driveway, and that increases the opportunities for accidents, depending on how these driveways are set up. Can people be backing out onto these roads? Is there going to be turnaround? I just think 6 driveways is a lot worse than 1, and I think you're going to have 0 trees as opposed to what a mixed-use development of this reduced size. And I think you need to take a recommendation from the county staff who has recommended approval of this. And I think all the objection is just because of the numbers, and I don't think it takes into consideration good planning principles. That's just my opinion. Thank you very much.
Heather Kimber.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having us here to make public comment. My name is Heather Kinder. I'm here with my husband, Dennis Kinder, and our neighbor, Nicole Barksdale, and we're members of, residents rather, of the neighborhood of Rice Fields, which is located about a quarter mile from the intersection at Waverly and Kings River. And in an effort not to repeat what others have said, I just want to make a plea to you as a neighbor, as a member of the community. Please deny this rezoning. I have two concerns that I just want you to picture that intersection at 3 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And if you happen to make a mistake and not look at the clock when you leave your house that day, it could cost you an hour. Not only is it the time and the traffic and the congestion that's located there, you've got two schools, you've got the elementary school, you've also got the high school. You've got 2 or 3 churches and many neighborhoods. And you've also got young drivers coming from the high school. You've got occasionally golf carts coming through there. You've got delivery trucks. You've got regular traffic. You've got school buses. To add one driveway, it's the traffic. It's the amount of people that come through there. And I'm just asking you to consider what that looks like adding additional housing at a higher level of density. I'm also concerned about the precedent that this sets and the trend that we're seeing in the development of this community that we love. That's a small community. It's warm, it's kind, it's neighborly, and we want to keep it that way. And what I think you're hearing tonight is not objection to development, because you're going to see that development. It's already zoned to be developed. And we have a plan that, I don't know the details. From what I've read, there was a master land use plan developed in 2015 that allows for conscientious plan, thoughtful. I'm assuming you all had a hand in, if not developing it, certainly approving it, looking at it, reviewing it along with the community, and we just ask you to hold true to that plan and that zoning of this particular property as residential. I also am concerned about the property across the street, which I understand is owned by the same seller, and I can only assume that in the future that 20 acres will come to market and they'll want to rezone that property as well, and this sets a dangerous precedent. So I'm just asking you as a member of the neighborhood, please deny this request to rezone. Thank you very much.
Bruce Watts.
Good evening, Council. Listening to a lot of the comments, clearly some of the people out here have never looked at the plans. One, for instance, is the trees. We've clustered this project. Yes, we are asking for an increase in density, which is 4 units, 6 to 4, but we've clustered them inside the center of this property. We've left the trees all the way around. If you were to look at the plans that are out there, I haven't touched 40-foot buffer all the way around this property. We haven't touched it at all. We're putting a retention pond. We're retaining all of our storm water. Our trees and our land are absorbing all of our water. We're trying to prevent this. We've cut it down to 1 curb. We've answered a lot of the questions the first time at Planning Commission. The height, they didn't like the height. We went from 3 stories to 1.5 stories. They didn't like the cut through. We took the cut through out to drop it to 1 curb cut. I mean, I'm going to go back. I'm just trying to answer your questions up here. But more than anything, the environmental impact that we're doing is a lot less if we were to clear cut 6 lots. I know what clear cut 6 lots look like. We're trying to leave as many trees, and I think we've got on our plan somewhere in around 87 trees. We're not touching hardly any of the oak trees. We've moved buildings around to leave that out. All right, now I'll go to my notes. I live on Waverly. I live right down the street from this project. I really feel that what we're trying to do is what we're talking about is density versus environment. Yes, we're adding 4, but the environmental impact that we're doing on this property, the trees we're leaving all the way around it, I really would like for you to take time and look at the property. We're trying as much to put this inside a pocket in the center and leave the trees all the way around. We have had an endorsement from SCALP. I don't know if you're familiar with SCALP, South Carolina Environmental Law Project. I'd like to read some of the quotes from them. They told me I could. This is a quote here is, from Amy Armstrong. I believe the revised plan, and especially the efforts to keep all the trees, is the best thing from an environmental perspective on this property. I believe the increased density is a completely worthwhile trade-off to keep so many trees. I'm not sure, this is a quote, how people can't look around at all the half-acre lots that have been completely clear-cutted all along Kings River and not see what it could look like, even in just highlighting how many trees have left the rainwater that was collecting from the trees, absorbing. What this would do if we clear-cut, and we'd almost have to clear-cut the lots to do it, and we could do that. We are leaving the buffer all the way around. We're clustering it right in the center. It amazes me. You know, I really think we're trying to make it's density versus an environment. Yes, we're asking for 4 more, but the environmental impact that we're doing on planet Earth is nothing compared to what it could do. Our pervious versus our impervious is a lot less than what it would be on a single-family lot. The bell rung, so thanks.
Beverly Sullivan.
Can you all hear me? Okay. Chairman Thomas and members of the County Council, I'm Beverly Sullivan. I represent Keep It Green, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I have a diagram I would like to submit, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairperson. Thank you. The community has told you what approval of this request will do. Let me tell you about what it will not do. It will not meet any of the criteria required by Code 631.4 that are mandatory for a zone change to a flexible design district. Number 1, it will not promote affordable housing. Number 2, it will not increase open space unless you are willing to accept the fact that 100% take away something is an increase. Or if you are willing to rely on Mr. Watts' speculation that if this plan is not approved, another developer will come, build as many houses as possible, and make them as big as they can possibly be. There is no way to know what a future developer would do with half-acre single-family lots. Number 3, there isn't one person, I take it back. There may have been one person who told you tonight that he thinks this would enhance the community. The rest of the people here do not agree. So, what is this all about? This is really about the property across the street that is zoned currently as farm and agriculture, and the prospect of rezoning that to an FDD, which will allow for an additional 19 units. Mr. Watts has made concessions. He's told you what they were. He said that he's making these concessions because he heard the voices of the public and he gets it. No, he doesn't get it. No increase in density or number of units beyond the current status is acceptable. And no, we will not open the door for those he represents to move on to a much bigger project when this is done so he can destroy this community. Every time a new request for a zone change like this comes forward, we have to get up here and fight. We can't do this by ourselves. We need the help of our county council, and we rely on you to put your interests and your visions aside and think about the people who live in this community. We have no vote here, but you do, and we are pleased asking you to deny this request. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's the final speaker for tonight.
Okay, thank you. We now move to the approval of the minutes from the regular session from September the 8th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the minutes.
Motion by Mr. Newton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carolina. All in favor? Minutes are approved. By virtue of approving the agenda, the consent agenda is approved, and that's RFQ number 20-38. Next, we move to public hearings. We'll open the public hearings for ordinance number 20-36 to amend the comprehensive plan for future land use map to reflect the reclassification of a parcel located on Macklin Avenue in Merle's Inlet. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearings for ordinance number 20-36. Next, we move to resolutions and proclamations. Proclamation number 20-20 to proclaim October 2020 as Fire Prevention Month in Georgetown County. Mr. Ellis, I believe you are introducing.
Good evening, Chairman Thomas, council members. Before you have a proclamation designating October as Fire Prevention Month in Georgetown County. The goal of this nationwide campaign is to promote fire safety and fire safety awareness with our community. Along with this, during the month of October, we will also have Fire Prevention Week on October 4 through 10. The theme of this year's Fire Prevention Week is Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, and that's an initiative to address and focus on the leading cause of home fires and home fire injuries, which is cooking-related fires. With me this evening, we have representatives from Georgetown County Fire EMS, Midway Fire Rescue, and Merle's Inlet Garden City Fire Rescue. And these individuals, they work tirelessly to promote fire safety throughout their communities on a daily basis, not just during the month of October. And we commend them for their efforts on a daily basis. Each of our fire personnel are extremely passionate about the services they provide, and they take their jobs very personally, as we all know. We greatly appreciate your consideration for this proclamation, and our folks will continue to strive and excel in the fire service and fire prevention world.
Thank you. I'll read the proclamation, get approval from council, and then we'll have can we have someone come up and receive it?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. So this is whereas the County of Georgetown is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our county. And whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and single and multifamily homes are the locations where our citizens and visitors are the greatest risk from fire, and whereas according to the National Fire Protection Association, fire departments in the United States responded to 363,000 fires in single and multifamily homes during 2018, which resulted in 2,720 fire fatalities and 12,700 injuries to citizens in those home fires. And whereas the National Fire Protection Association has announced Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen as the theme for Fire Prevention Week, October 4th through 10th. Their focus on cooking fire safety comes in response to home cooking fires, representing the leading cause of U.S. home fires, with nearly half of all home fires involving cooking equipment. Unattended cooking is the leading cause of these fires. And whereas the key messages Georgetown County's first responders want to give our citizens are: 1, keep a close eye on what you're cooking; 2, never leave the kitchen when you're frying food; 3, keep items such as oven mitts, wooden and plastic utensils, food packages, and dish towels at least 3 feet from the stovetop; and 4, always keep small children at least 3 feet from in front of the stove. And whereas to ensure our families are better safeguarded from fire, Every resident of Georgetown County should install and maintain smoke alarms in every sleeping area, outside each separate sleeping area, and on every level of the home, which cuts the risk of dying in a home fire in half. And whereas Georgetown County's first responders, representing the collective members of the Georgetown County Fire EMS, Midway Fire Rescue, and the Merle's Inlet Garden City Fire District, are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through providing community-based fire prevention, education, and intervention. And whereas Georgetown County residents are asked to be responsive to public education measures and should take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And as we celebrate the 2020 Fire Prevention Month throughout the county, we urge all of the citizens and visitors of Georgetown County to participate in the many fire prevention activities and efforts provided by the collective Georgetown County Fire and Emergency Service organizations. Fire Prevention Month, voted, ratified, and adopted this 22nd day of September 2020. Entertain a motion to approve this proclamation. Motion by Mr. Goggins. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mann. All in favor? The proclamation is adopted, and we...
Yes, sir. I'll invite some of the representatives here to come up and receive it.
All right. Next on the agenda is third reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 19-25, an ordinance setting the base salaries for elected officials of Georgetown County. Mr. County Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, good evening. This is an ordinance it's third reading of this ordinance to set the base salaries for the elected officials of Georgetown County and further repealing ordinance number 2005-45. There have been no changes since this discussion at second reading, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any more.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In an effort to allow council to get some additional information so that we can make a more informed decision, I move that this ordinance number 19-25 be deferred.
Second. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry. Ordinance number 20-36 to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map to reflect the reclassification of a parcel located on Macklin Avenue in Merle's Inlet.
Is that better?
Yes.
This is third reading for this ordinance. We haven't had any changes. This was basically deferred so we could hold the public hearing, which we did tonight. This is a vote from the Planning Commission to recommend approval to amend the future land use map from medium-density residential to transitional to support the rezoning that we're going to talk about in the next item.
Okay. You want to go ahead and describe ordinance number 20-37, and we can just vote on both of them at once?
Sure. This is also a third reading for approximately half an acre parcel located at 646 Macklin Avenue. The owner has requested to use the site for medical use. It does meet the minimum lot area requirement for the medical district, which is 10,000 square feet. Surrounding tracts are zoned GR, and there are 2 parcels to the west that are currently zoned MD. Those parcels were rezoned in May of 2016 from general commercial to the medical district. This tract does abut some multifamily uses, so there will need to be a level 1 buffer installed if the rezoning is approved, and we've discussed a change to the future land use map is also needed to facilitate the request. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval for the proposed rezoning.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council on these 2 ordinances? If not, open the floor for a motion for ordinance number 20-36, the change to the comprehensive plan. Motion by Mr. Newton. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Goggins. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Ordinance number 20-36 is approved on third reading. Entertain a motion for ordinance number 20-37, amendment to rezone the parcel from general residential to medical district.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion.
Motion to approve by Mr. Carolina. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Newton. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Ordinance number 20-37 is approved on third reading. We move to second reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 20-42 to rezone 3.2 acres located on the southeast corner of Waverly Road and Kings River Road. Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir. The purpose of this request is for a new, now 10-unit multifamily development to be located at Waverly Road and Kings River Road in Pawleys. You have a copy of the revised site plan in your packet, which we received on September the 10th. So I'll be going over the revised plan as it was submitted. The 3.28 acres for this site exceeds the minimum for the FDD zoning district, which is 2 acres. We have single-family residential property bordering this to the south and the east, and multifamily residential to the west. The new plan is for a multi-residential development to be located within 5 separate buildings, each building containing 2 units each. The plan shows a 40-foot buffer on all sides, which will be undisturbed. There is a slight clarification to the pervious-impervious ratio. The new proposal calculates at 19% of the site impervious, and 79% of the site will remain pervious. Additionally, 2.36 acres of the site will remain undisturbed, with the exception of a retention area that will be needed for stormwater. 10% of the site will be covered with building area. The applicant is now showing 1 access point into the development off Waverly Road to be located directly across from Woodville Circle. Encroachment permit will be needed from SCDOT for the curb cut. The new cul-de-sac is proposed to be constructed of asphalt, and the driveways will be constructed of pervious material. Each dwelling unit shows a total of 3 parking spaces, 2 in the driveway and 1 under a carport. The building size has been reduced to 1.5 stories from the 3 stories that were initially proposed. And the new plan shows a proposed net density of 3.27 units per acre. The applicant is showing a level 2 buffer to be constructed against the southern boundary with the single-family homes that are located along Partridge Lane. The plan currently shows the retention of 87 trees. The largest tree on the property is a 40-inch live oak that's located near units 9 and 10 on the site, which will be retained. The largest tree proposed to be removed for the development is the 28-inch gum tree There are no other trees over 25 inches in diameter that are proposed to be removed for the development. The clustering of the buildings will also allow for the remainder of the property to be undisturbed and left green space. Stormwater is proposed to be handled through a series of catch basins throughout the site, which will then be funneled to a proposed new retention pond. The future land use map designates this property as low-density residential. The proposed net density of 3.27 units per acre does fall within what is considered in our comp plan as medium density. The closest medium density designation is located approximately 380 feet west of the track and 250 feet southeast of this track. The expected annual traffic trips for the site are now at 60 per day, and that is over a 24-hour period, which is well below the threshold of 500 trips per day, which is what we require for a traffic study. The FDD does have some specific intent language. Section 613.114 of the ordinance requires a narrative from the applicant that addresses how this project better improves the natural environment than the traditional zoning. The applicant has provided a letter which is in your packet to that effect. But in summary, this project has less building area, less curb cuts, more open space, and more tree preservation. Section 631.4 also states that higher density shall only be allowed when strong evidence is presented that either one of three things: affordable housing will be promoted, usable open space will be increased, or the natural environment will be enhanced. Staff recommended approval of this request at the recent Planning Commission meeting with the following conditions: final approvals from all the necessary agencies. Section B, we are changing that all structures should have a minimum roof pitch of 612. Now that the buildings have reduced in size, it allows for a greater roof pitch, and that the building materials meet the requirements of the commercial overlay zone. We're also recommending that a conservation easement be put in place for the 2.36 acres that are to remain undisturbed, or deed restrictions, so that that portion of the tract would remain green in perpetuity. Also, an amendment to the future land use map is needed to change this from low density to medium density. And we're also requesting a provision of a future bike easement along Kings River Road. The Planning Commission held this public hearing on August 20th. They received over 200 emails in opposition to the project and 2 in favor. 9 people spoke at the meeting opposing the project. After considerable discussion, a motion to deny the project was made, and the motion tied 3-3. No further motions were made by the Planning Commission, so unfortunately we're bringing this to you tonight without a positive or a negative recommendation from the Planning Commission. This issue, if approved by this body, does require an amendment to the future land use map as discussed. The Planning Commission did not take any action on this item, and if you choose to act positively, then we believe the Planning Commission would still need to vote on the future land use map change at a future meeting. The options moving forward here are to approve the application, but ask the Planning Commission to review the future land use map, to deny the application, or remand this issue back to the Planning Commission for further study.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Are there any questions from council?
I do have a question for our council. Council can act tonight to approve or disapprove with just the 3-3 vote? Just some clarification there.
Right. The way that our ordinance is written is it requires a review by the Planning Commission and a report. So you can move forward, and you certainly have the ability to do that. You also have the ability to remand it. So your options are open, but yes, there is no impediment, so to speak, as to there being no positive or negative report out of the Planning Commission.
The changes that have occurred, which are generally positive, applicants come from 14 units to 10, 2 curb cuts down to 1. irrespective of the changes the applicant's made, we can still move forward, or again?
So generally, there's a little bit of precedent for that, but generally you would have a recommendation, say a positive recommendation, and then the applicant would come in and reduce the intensity of the use of the land. Generally, there's no problem with that. This does not have a recommendation one way or the other. So you do have a change that reduces the intensity of the land use, so to speak. So, based solely just on that, procedurally, yes, you can still move forward, or again, you can also send it back, but you certainly are within your right to do either one of those things.
Our question is, Ms. Richardson, with the changes that you presented and the recommendations by the builder, have they been presented back to the Planning Commission?
No, sir. The Planning Commission has not acted on the revised plan that's before you tonight with the 10 units. When they last saw this plan, it had 14 townhomes and 2 curb cuts.
Okay. And at that time, or currently, what was first put before the commission, they voted 3-3, or they remanded it up to us to make this decision?
Yes, sir. There was a motion to deny the request to rezone the property, and that motion tied with a 3-3 vote, and there were no further motions.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The motion that was denied at the Planning Commission, that was based on the different units, with 14 units, I think?
That motion was based on the plan in front of them, yes, sir, which was 14 units.
Okay. And again, generally, before a plan is presented to the council, the Planning Commission have the opportunity to review all those particular plans and send up a proposed recommendation, although they don't have to come to a conclusion. Is that the general standard procedurally?
Yes, sir. Before any rezoning is brought before the council, Planning Commission holds a public hearing and votes on a recommendation.
So procedurally, then, the Planning Commission has not had the opportunity to review these changes?
They have not seen these changes, no, sir.
So the community nor the developer has had the opportunity to present their case to the Planning Commission to show that it actually complies or not comply with the zoning ordinance?
They did present their case on the 14 units. I see what you're saying. There could be some potential changes based on the fact that the density's been reduced and the curb cuts have been reduced.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Ms. Richardson from council? In that case, I'll open the floor for motions. I recognize myself. I move to deny the application for rezoning. As has been said before, the overriding issue on the Waccamaw Neck is density. Is there a second? Hearing none, is there another motion?
Chairman, I make a motion that we do remand this back to the Planning Commission for further consideration in light of the changes that have occurred, and hopefully we'll receive a report from Planning Commission in terms of their recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Goggins. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second
Mr.
by
Chairman.
Mr. Newton. Any discussion? In that case, all in favor of remanding it back to the Planning Commission, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, this is sent back to the Planning Commission. Next, we move to ordinance number 20-43 to amend the future land use map. Ordinance number 20-43 to amend the future land use map for a parcel located. Okay. Okay, moving on. Ordinance number 20-43 to amend the future land use map for a parcel located on the southeast corner of Powell Road and Harris Landing Road in Georgetown. Ms. Richardson.
To item 11C, which is the rezoning for this as well.
Okay, do them both at once.
Okay, I'll do them both together. This is a 11B, I'm sorry, is a request to redesignate almost 1 acre parcel located at the corner of Powell Road and Harris Landing Road in the North Santee area. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend rezoning the parcel from rural general residential to neighborhood commercial, and they also voted to recommend a change to the future land use map to transitional in order to facilitate the request. And I'll go over the rezoning as well. This was a request from a Mr. David Collins to rezone the parcel from RG to GC. That was his initial request, was for general commercial. The owner is proposing to build a snack shop for boaters on the way to the landing, and the site meets our minimum lot area requirement for the GC zoning district. The surrounding tracts are mostly zoned RG. There is a large parcel to the southwest that is zoned general commercial. Surrounding uses are single-family residential, a church, and a cemetery. The southern boundary of this parcel abuts single family, so the applicant would have to erect a level 3 landscape buffer if the property is developed as a commercial use. The future land use map designates this property as low-density residential. The map obviously does need to be amended to facilitate this change. Staff recommended denial of the rezoning to general commercial at the Planning Commission meeting. Staff suggested that if the property is rezoned, that neighborhood commercial be considered, as the applicant's proposed use would fit within the neighborhood commercial zoning, and the applicant agreed to the neighborhood commercial request. A public hearing was held by the Planning Commission. One neighbor spoke in favor of the request, one neighbor spoke in opposition to the request. The commission then voted 6-0 to recommend approval for rezoning to neighborhood commercial, and that's what's before us tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Richardson from council? In that case, move to open the floor for a motion for ordinance number 20-43 to amend the future land use map.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, recommendation for the approval of ordinance number 2043.
Motion by Mr. Carolina, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Ordinance number 20-43 is approved on second reading. Moving to ordinance number 20-44. I'll open the floor for a motion for this ordinance to rezone the parcel of land.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for the recommendation and approval for the approval of ordinance number 2044.
Motion by Mr. Carolina, is there a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Ordinance number 20-44 is approved on second reading.
Thank you.
Come on. Get the page to turn. Okay, we now move to emergency ordinance number 20-46, state of emergency. Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, I'm going to try something different tonight. So Holly and I went over her standing at the podium, so I think I'm going to stand at the podium too, so I don't, so I can experience that. I don't think I've ever done that. Maybe once or twice. But Holly did a great job. She's the interim planning director. It was a great night for her to start on. I'm sure we all can agree on that. And you just want to commend her for her excellent job tonight. This is a continuation of our state of emergency ordinance ordinance 20-46. This ordinance, our current state of emergency ends, I think, on the 29th, which is next week. This will put us in a position to where the state of emergency is extended in Georgetown County starting today through October 27th. If you recall, you extended your face covering ordinance through October 27th. So what we are going to do is position our state of emergency with the face covering ordinance so all these things can continue to be extended if need be in one fell swoop from here on out. So just really quickly, some of the new numbers as of today, the World Health Organization has reported over 31.4 million COVID-19 cases. There are over 966,000 deaths worldwide, and with over 21 million reported recoveries. In Georgetown County, there have been 1,860 COVID infections with 44 total deaths, and in South Carolina, there have been 138,000 reported COVID infections with just over 3,200 deaths. So we do feel it is necessary that council extend this state of emergency in Georgetown County because it will do the following. It will continue the enactment of our emergency operation plan and continuity of operation plan from our EOC. It will also allow the administrator to modify employee personnel and building facility policies during the pandemic, during this emergency, so we can continue to provide essential services in our modified methods. It will also allow all meetings that stem from Georgetown County to be able to be conducted electronically. This includes public hearings and public comment. It also authorizes the administrator to alter our hours with regard to certain facilities, including parks and recreational facilities. We are able to use emergency procurement to acquire PPE when we find those deals that we have been finding, where it is beneficial financially for the county to do so. And again, it will expire October 27th, which is about a month and a half from now, the same with the face covering, so we will most likely revisit it again at that time. So we are just certainly asking that you vote to approve this extension based on those facts, those statistics, and the need of Georgetown County internally for us to operate in a modified manner. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bryant from council?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. The administrator, according to this emergency ordinance, the finance director is supposed to report to her periodically on funds spent. Does that mean that there's a possibility that we will be reimbursed through CARES funds for these expenditures?
Councilor Johnson, that's exactly right. What we have submitted a request for reimbursement to the state of South Carolina. The legislature has set up a system through the CARES Act, and there is designated money. We do not know when that will happen. We do know that some form of reimbursement will happen. It's still up in the air, but there's certainly an accounting for that we have kept up with and we have sent on to the state, projected through December 30th of this year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? In that case, I'll entertain a motion for emergency ordinance number 20-46.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt emergency ordinance number 20-46, state of emergency.
Motion by Ms. Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Morant. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Emergency ordinance number 20-46 is adopted. Brings us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Be it. Second?
Second.
Okay,
I move.
we are adjourned. Thank you very much.